So when I'm working out at home, I don't have the time to go out for my 2 and 3 hour bike rides like in the old days. So what I'm oftentimes doing is working out in the midst of feeding a 10-month-old who's got a real independent streak. So what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the fact that your body doesn't know whether you've tied 45 minutes of exercise together in one chunk or done it in a bunch of little tiny chunks. So what I'll do is something simple, like a standing crunch. Now, this has a cardiovascular component because you're using the lower body. And you'll notice I'm not doing this super fast. And the reason is because of something called the cardiovascular halftime response. If you start doing cardiovascular activity, it takes 45 seconds for your body to catch up to the fact that you've started doing that activity. So what I want to do is I want to do a pace that's going to allow me to do this for 45 seconds without being totally gassed. So I'm just working, touching opposite knee to opposite elbow, and 45 seconds from now, I'll be slightly gassed, as you can hear. Now, after I've done a little bit of a warm-up, and just a quick caveat, on that last warm-up I was doing, a fair amount of spinal flexion. If you want to do something modified, like just butt kicks in place, that's a good warm-up and it doesn't compromise the low back or mess with your posture. But after I'm done with that, I'll move on to something like a row. Now, most people do a row like this. The whole advantage to using a band is every stinking last thing you do with the band while you're standing is a core exercise, whether you want it to be a core exercise or not. So what I do is I double down on it, where I do it one arm at a time. Now you can alternate the grip and get slightly different muscle groups, but as I do this, the band is pulling me this way, and the only thing that's resisting is my core. That's the only thing that's keeping me from twisting and from toppling over. So one arm at a time takes an exercise that is your bicep and your traps and your lats, and turns it into something that also involves the muscles of the back and makes it into a core as well as an upper body exercise. So once I'm done with doing something like the rows or something actually muscular that's not cardiovascular in any way, shape, or form, I want to go back to a little bit of cardiovascular, keeping on that theme of doing it at a speed such that I can do it for 45 seconds straight. And one of my favorite moves, and I like this one because it's got a little cardio component, it's got a little quad component, and it's got a big rear end component, is the single leg step up. Now here's the trick. When you have people do this, what they will do is step up. And they're cheating because they're pushing with this toe. The trick here is you want to pull this toe off the ground and then spring up, come back down and touch with the heel and spring up. And again, you want to be doing this at a pace where you could do it for, 20 seconds per side. So I'm going to introduce Val here and I'll walk her through it. Climb aboard, Val. So put your foot up, and the key thing is this toe be off the ground, put your hands on those hips, and then come up and yes. And what you want to do is bring this leg up as high as is humanly possible, because when the angle between the quad and the thorax closes enough, that butt cheek turns on. If you don't do that, the glute hardly gets involved at all. Excellent, Val. So after I'm done with another round of cardio, which, step-ups, if you do 45 seconds of them, that's probably about all that you can stand. You walk away, give yourself a nice rest. And one of the big things I want to keep emphasizing about cardio is that if you're doing something that's interval, like we've been doing, where you're working really hard and then taking a rest, one of the big things is to keep moving. What you're basically doing when you do an interval is you are desperately pumping blood to the lower body so you can keep the movement going. And then during the rest period, the blood pumps back to the heart and overfills the heart and stretches it. That's physically what makes the heart into a better pump. And if you do hard work and then just hold still, a big part of that effect is negated. So when you're done with something like those step-ups that we just did, walk around the kitchen, walk around a little bit, because that's part of the effect. Now once I'm done, I take a deep breath, and I want to do something for core, which is a much overused word, and people, I think sometimes place a little too much emphasis on it. But one of the big lessons that I've learned about core activities lately is that you want to do core in a way that doesn't actually move the core as much. You want to use the limbs while the core is stable in order to work the core. That's the safest way to do it. This is the workout that I can do, and this is the workout I can give to my mom despite her bone density issues. So one of my favorites and the safest is this annoying little maneuver. You get a band under some decent tension. You got your feet about shoulder width apart, and you hold the thing out in front of you. Now, what makes this special? What makes this special is I can handle it for about 15 seconds, which means it actually is making the core stronger. If I can do a plank for 2 minutes, I'm just getting better at doing a plank for 2 minutes. This is what actually makes you stronger. So what you want is you want core activities that actually fatigue you in a short period of time. A nice variation on that theme is what I call stirring the cauldron, where you physically act like you're stirring a giant cauldron. It's a decent arm workout, decent chest workout, and the core muscles are working like crazy. If you can do a plank for 2 minutes, it probably means at that point you're working on muscular endurance and not actual core strength. Now, it doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. One of my favorite things to do to make an old plank into something a little more powerful is to do a modified plank with a wide foot stance. You're not going narrow here, you're going wide. And then you throw in a row on top of it. Suddenly, an exercise you could do for a minute and a half becomes something you can do for 20 seconds, and that's core strength. Thank you for joining me here at Miraval Resorts in Tucson for a little bit of science and a little bit of movements that'll help you hold it together through the holidays.